Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Tuesday. It's May 21st. This will be our chart lesson for the day, and really quiet day today. Um, this is really kind of unusual for to see this tight a range, except a big news announcement day. Sometimes you'll see that because nobody wants to commit one way or the other, and the market just kind of goes to sleep while everybody kind of waits for something to come out. I know that I think there was some FOMC speeches or something today, but nothing of any magnitude that would cause that you would expect to see this really. So it was just kind of an unusual day overall. But one thing you have to remember is generally if if the market is trending up and goes into a range like this, if it succeeds on a breakout, it's generally going to probably go up. And even if it succeeds, it's generally going to come back and test the breakout area again. Notice that it took a little while to get back, and then it had a little two-legged correction here, one leg, then a little sideways on another leg, and then it started higher again. So it did come back and test this. It actually didn't hold at first, and then it ended up breaking higher again. So you would expect this would probably at least be the center of the pattern starting from here. But the first thing I would do is measure this leg right here and then look for a measured move from there, starting wherever this thing took off again, or the lowest point of this, really, basically. And you can see we didn't quite get there. Generally, that would lead to a fairly large correction in the opposite direction, or at least a correction of some magnitude in the other direction. I don't know if I would call that. I mean, really, considering there wasn't much movement in the regular session today, that's probably a pretty big move for the day. Um, but I would expect that to be the center of the pattern. So I would then measure that leg and look for another measured leg. And again, we didn't get anywhere close to that. We just couldn't push higher, really. We'd find these resistant areas. And I mean, that was really strong resistance, although you had really strong support. But the main thing I want you to take away from what I'm telling you here is that if you trade up into a range like this, the odds are on a successful breakout where the market's going to start trending again, you're going to trend to the upside. And if you had traded down into this, the likelihood would be that you'd trade lower again on a successful breakout. You might have failures on both sides, but eventually one of them are going to succeed and you're going to continue trending again. Like everything with trading, nothing is 100%, but that's generally what you can expect. And you can see that's what happened today. We finally broke out. We didn't even have any failures here. I mean, we just continued to bounce off that support, and eventually it went higher. And what was a little bit of a fake out was, notice we didn't get back up there this time, and it looked like we were going to try to go lower again. And so that would lead you to believe that we probably were going to at least get a little failure to the downside, or attempted breakout, but it just never did, and then finally it went higher. So that was a little bit of a question mark right there that really throws you off, and that's why this trade is green instead of definitely being blue, because that's a little bit of a, generally if you see that, you would expect it to at least maybe drop lower here and make a failed breakout, but it's still a second entry long and a nice bullish bar that bounces right off. But also there's three bars there, and one of them's negative. It's like up down, it's like down up down basically, and you got some matching highs. So that makes that real suspect to me, because it could have broke higher and then turned down again. And if you drew your little trend line, which you probably should, you can see that. And so that's a little bit of a risky trade there. Otherwise, but still, that's the way you have to trade this. And you don't always get a trend line break and a new low. So, that makes you say, hey, the trend line may not matter anyway here, because we're in a range, very tight range. So just something to think about there. But make sure you understand that generally, whichever way you trade into the range is generally going to be the way you're successful trading out of the range. And again, nothing's 100%, never is in trading. And so just keep all that in mind. But anyway, let's talk about the trades. 7 o'clock came right in this little bit here. We had a little correction coming back. We already had one leg up, and we were working on a second leg here. And notice you're pulling down. You get a first entry. You come back. You actually get a second entry right there. So you might have been thinking, if you were here, you probably could have entered there. That being up, down, up, I'd probably skip it. But notice we made a little double top, and then we pull back, and you get a first entry, and then you pull back again, and it bounces right off that trend line. You get a little second entry there, and now you got a nice little bullish bar, and you got some separation there, and some additional, notice that low, first entry and second entry. So now you got a failed second entry short too. So I like going long there. And you expect it to go up here and continue trending higher. Of course, it moves up, we make a new high, and then we get a break, and that's when we go into this. But at this point, when this is at the far right-hand corner of your chart, that's the first break of this channel, and you're moving down. You get a first entry. You actually get a second entry there, but it's not a very good bar. But when it turns down here and it bounces, now you made that low, you tested it once, you tested it twice, you've already had a break of this little trend and a new line. If it breaks above that bar, when that bar finishes, I'm going to put my buy stop right there, and if it goes higher, I'm going with it. And that's exactly what happens. And you would expect us to try to go up and make a new high, but it just ends up going sideways. And so you have to be really careful. I don't see anything in here. You're mostly going to want to stick to the upside. But if you got a really good setup off the highs, you might take it because this is a range and you can trade it like a range. But I'd want to at least see a double test. And by the time we get one, look at these signal bars are very bullish across here or neutral. That's the only bearish one, and that's a first entry. And you don't really, you're still expecting prices to kind of go higher. There's actually another second entry long right there that, you might even consider that one. So actually, I think I said a second entry. I meant to say a higher low right there because you're coming up, and that's just a pullback right there off a new high. So that's a first entry. So I can't remember. For some reason, I feel like I said second entry, and I didn't mean to. So if I did say second entry, scratch that. It's just a higher low. Second entry comes right here, but you actually made a new high. So I wouldn't count that as a second entry. So I don't think you want to enter anywhere across there. This one's tempting because you made this double bottom over here. You test it once, you test it twice right here. And that's a fairly bullish bar, but it kind of gapped down there. And so you would expect it to come back to fill that gap, even if it's going to try to come back down and test that again. And this thing just kind of takes off. So you'd be lucky if you could probably get into that trade. You'd have to be real quick. It's a possibility. But it had been a while since we've been back down here, so I'd want a higher low, and you don't really get a higher low here, but you finally do here. Now you got your double test, so and a nice bullish bar, so that's the better place to enter. But that's a possibility. You could argue for that one to at least be green. I'd probably skip this one because it's just another first entry, and even though it's fairly bullish, let me make this a little bigger. That's kind of hard to see. Even though that's fairly bullish, you still got some stem. It's a first entry. I'd probably wait, and when it comes back, and now you got a clear double test of that level with a big bullish bar and plenty of room. Now I like it, and then it doesn't even go to the top. You could have scalped out of that with no problem, and it looked like it might have fooled you there for a minute. And that's why, I made a comment in the mid-morning chart is, don't let second entries and failed second entries trip you up in a little tight range like this, because they will. Because they will fail back and forth multiple times, and they will fool you. So really you just want to play range rules here, which is try to get long off the lows and try to get short off the highs. And I just don't see anything up here to get short on. We traded up into this, so the bias is still kind of upward, as I talked about at the beginning of the video. So we're looking to go long, and then we finally come back first entry, and then you come back in another second entry with a nice bullish bar. Notice it didn't break above right there though, and so you really got another down, up, down, and some matching highs again. I can't remember where that other one was. It happened here somewhere else. It ended up working, but you may take that one. But again, I would probably, the fact that we didn't make that high right there and turned it a lower high, that makes me a little leery of this, especially when you couldn't break higher on that bar. And it just kind of turns out to be kind of an inside bar. So I'd wait on something better. We do get a little breakout pull back here, but again, look look how we have all those matching highs right across there. Let me just draw the line so it's very clear to everybody. Yep. I usually use the closes and the most touches, so that's dangerous going long above that. And, it works out, but it's still dangerous. And you actually get a failed second entry short right here when it turns and goes higher right there and breaks out. So you might consider that one, but you've been away from the EMA for a good while now. When you've been this flat, it's going to come back pretty quickly. And notice it does push on up. I definitely wouldn't enter up here, and it comes back real strongly. It looks like it's going to head lower. Notice that low right there, first entry, second entry, and you got all those matching highs, a little failed break, nice bearish bar. That's a nice second entry. And you're looking for a second leg down. You don't get it yet. You actually end up getting a little two-legged correction, and then you get one more test of this high, and then it turns down. So, but you would have already been scalped out before it came back here. So, and notice that high, first entry, and you're coming down, the second leg down, and you get a second entry, and it fails right along that little trend line. And you're not back, you haven't come back and tested this again yet, and you got plenty of room, so I like that one. Then we bounce, and notice you get a little reversal pattern here. You make a new low, first entry, second entry fails. When it breaks higher there, it's a failure, and I'd look for another. That's really all one leg and a pullback. I'd look for another measured leg up, just so people can see it. There's that leg, and then you look for a measured leg up, and you might even measure it from there. But I'm probably going, this is where the real correction. That's really all still part of the same move, but it is a failed second entry short. I like it. It's a little bit aggressive, but I still think you probably want to take that trade. I mean, it's real close to being blue, so it depends on, you know, your how much of a taste for a little bit of aggressiveness you want to have. Because sometimes you might be catching the reversal here, because now you got two measured legs down basically. There's leg one and there's leg two, and that's generally can be the center of the pattern. So you may have whole nother leg up, just like this, starting right here, and you want to try to get in as early as you can. And of course we didn't quite get there, you can see that, but you don't know that ahead of time, and we still had a nice leg up as well. So then it comes back, first entry, and there's a second entry long, nice bullish bar. The problem with this is we're kind of still swinging above and beyond, but when it comes back and makes a higher low and confirms that trend line, there's your first two swings with this move right here, and then it comes back and gives you that confirmation. Nice bullish bar, closes on its very high. I like going long there. And it doesn't take off quickly, but it takes on off and moves higher. And then you make a high, first entry, pull back, and another second entry right off the trend line, EMA, nice bullish bar. And that really took you into the 2 o'clock hour. You definitely don't want to go long right here into that high with this high over here. So by the time you get another second entry, you're way over here, and it's after 2 o'clock. So there weren't a lot of trades today. These were all pretty safe trades. Even the more aggressive ones are fairly safe trades. I mean, that's the way you have to trade this. And notice, if you'd have taken any one of these longs off this strong support here, you'd have got a scalp. None of them would have failed, not any of them. Same thing up here. None of these would have failed either if you'd have taken them, but none of them are really good setups either, but none of them would have failed. So the idea is to get long off the lows and short off the highs on a range. And that's the only real safe way to trade it, other than a failed breakout. You did get a failed breakout right here, and I still think it would have worked. I'm not quite sure. let me just count. Let me just look. I'm just curious if it worked or not. Where is that? Okay, your entry one would have been 62, 2862, and this went down to 20. It would have been a 4-tick failure. But it would have given you several options here to say, hey, when you couldn't break hour right there, you would have known to get out. And so you probably wouldn't have lost much on it. So it may not have been a very high risk. But when it broke out here, I'd be thinking more along the lines of a breakout pullback, because eventually this thing has to give. I mean, we've been in a very tight range for a long time. So I doubt I would take that trade. I would at least wait on a lower high, and notice you never get one here. It just keeps going higher. And if you wait on that lower high, you're going to be always there's always a better chance you're going to be better off by doing so. You're going to get fooled less often. However, you're going to miss some really good trades sometimes, because usually when these things reverse, like here, you get a nice move down, and you could have gotten both of these legs out of it, if you want to hold on to a runner or whatever. So there's a trade-off for how much risk you want to take and how aggressive you want to be. You're going to have more losers as aggressive, but you're going to get a lot more runners and some bigger trades as well by being a little more aggressive. So I normally recommend people to not be very aggressive until you've gotten very good at this and you're consistently profitable. Then you might start working on the aggressiveness part and start working on the failed second entries and all that stuff. So early on, just concentrate on the easy stuff. Second entries with the trend, taking the range rules, double tests, and making sure that you're buying the lows and selling the highs of the range and the failed breakouts and stuff like that on the range. So anyway, kind of a quiet day, not a lot of movement. Still plenty of trades here. Most of them are just scalps. And when you got it going like this, I wouldn't be trying to pick up any runners, because you're just going to probably waste your time. I'd just be scalping on these. Once it starts trending, then you might try to pick up your runners again. So, and if you got a failed breakout down here, I'd probably try to pick up a runner as well. But just trading this off the lows here and off the highs as a range that tight, I'm not going to look for any runners. They're probably all going to be failures. So they're going to come back and get your break even stop, because there's not enough movement. So keep that in mind. But anyway, you can see that we traded up in this range, broke out, had another couple legs up in reverse. So anyway, I'm going to wrap it up, and we'll be back again tomorrow. I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.